Hey, this is Jesse Moskel, and I am recording episode number 7 of the Recovery Authors Podcast in a rather unorthodox position. Right now, I am sitting on a wooden chair that's over 120 years old. It was made by one of my predecessors in the family, great-grandfather. And the chair is perched rather precariously on my stoop right by my front porch here in my apartment in West Columbia. And as you can hear behind me, the rain is falling. It's let's see, where are we? March 5th, 2020. It's a super rainy day. I can see massive puddles. I think there's flood warnings out, and schools are probably closing down because down here in South Carolina, they don't take too kindly to any sort of inclement weather. But nonetheless, the podcast goes on, and there's a lot of sunshine inside my heart, and hopefully you can hear it in my voice, and hopefully you can hear my voice over the rain and any other noises, cars, or what have you that might happen by while I'm recording this 20-minute or so episode. There's a couple things I want to cover, so I've taken a couple of notes here. 3 things, in fact. Number 1 has to do with bad old habits, and what I wanted to say about that is simply this. In terms of moving forward in my recovery, there are roughly 30 years of habits which were mostly bad, founded in selfishness of addiction. And moving forward in new relationships, what I'm finding is that it takes a lot of extra work for me to A, become aware of the bad habits, and B, there's a plane going overhead now, of course, B, to, after I become aware of the bad habits, to identify what they are and seek out ways to overcome them and change them into good habits. So that's one of the challenges, I think, for me in early recovery and past relapses, where I either didn't recognize or become aware of them, but simply just kind of beat myself up when I made mistakes. And so that's the message I want to give on that point in terms of bad habits, is to give yourself a break and just recognize that the bad habits and attitudes and ways in which we interact with the world in addiction can't be the same way we do it in recovery. And just to kind of take it easy and recognize that it's going to take time to change, and that, you know, when we walk into a forest over 30 years, which metaphorically is addiction, for me at least, getting out of that forest can't take a week or a year. You know, it's a process of years. And the more we work towards becoming productive, accountable, integrity-bound human beings, the better we'll feel in the long run. So just trust the process, and I hope you can reach out and find the resources to allow yourself time and space to heal, because it is worth it. I am a living testament to that. Today's one of the best days of my life, and it just keeps getting better day after day, like my good buddy Chris from episode 3 or 4 says. So that's number 1. Number 2 is actually related to number 1 in the sense that it's another habit. What I've been finding in recovery is that the habits of spending money and the way in which I thought about money needed to change in a dramatic way, because for whatever reason, my experience in recovery hasn't been the smoothest or the fastest in terms of getting my finances back in order and securing assets like I was actually able to when I was getting high and working. It's come a little slower. So what I've had to do is become a lot more aware of how I spend money and what I spend it on, and the prioritization of needs versus wants has really come into the fore. So in terms of doing that, the guest I've got this weekend, her name is Amy Dresner, and here's her book. If you're watching the video, you'll be able to see this. If not, check out the show notes. This is an incredible book. I've thoroughly enjoyed what I've read. I haven't finished it yet, but I hope to before our interview this weekend. But early in the book, Amy's telling a story about how she's on one of these clean teams and she's sweeping up all the detritus of Santa Monica Boulevard, used condoms, empty syringes, and that sort of junk, old cigarette butts. And she talks about how you do anything is how you do everything. And so on this second point, the habit of shepherding my cash and utilizing it in the most efficient and intelligent manner possible has really been a big issue for me. Making some mistakes has been actually the fodder for learning, and again, not beating myself up, but thinking smarter about the next dollar that comes into my bank account. So that's been really helpful. The quote actually comes from T. Harv Eker, who's another author, and he's really a coach in the financial sector. He's actually I'm a really big fan of T. Harv Eker, and he says, how you do anything is how you do everything. So the point there, for me at least, is nothing doesn't matter. Every little detail of how you brush your teeth or make your bed or talk to your friend on the phone, whether you're fully engaged or whether you're distracted. These all seem to be trivial things on the surface, but for me anyways, they're actually primary drivers of how I do the big things in my life. So I'm really being mindful of the tiny details in my life, and I'm finding as I do that, the big things in my life are falling more and more in place and looking better and better as well. So that's just a little tip that's making a big difference for me. The final thing that I'd like to get into is actually a letter that I wrote and posted on the recoveryauthors.org website. And the letter is essentially my vision for this podcast and the big why that I have created this whole mission or movement. Actually, let's call it a movement, the Recovery Authors movement. Now, the premise, of course, for Recovery Authors is that when you're tired, sick and tired of living the scripts that have been handed to you, and you're sick and tired of accepting other people's influence over your life, you can rest that pen or that pencil from whoever's writing your life or imposing their restrictions or limitations or values upon you. You can take that pen and say, I'm going to write my own damn life. I want to have control here. And that's what Recovery Authors is all about. It's not restricted to addiction, though that's where the origins of it come because of my own addiction. But I realized that I could write my own life. And doing that, I have been able to author my own recovery. And that is what I hope for you, whether you're in addiction or whether you're suffering from some other tragedy in life, whatever you're overcoming. This podcast and everything around it within the movement is dedicated to helping you see that A, it's possible, and B, that you can do this. And we're all here to support you. So I'm just going to click on the mission tab here at recoveryauthors.org, and I'm going to read this letter to you. And with that, I'll close. Oh, by the way, for those of you that are watching the video on my YouTube channel at Recovery Authors, what you see behind me is actually my kitchen / office. I live here in West Columbia, and you can see behind me some of the books, the desk that I sit at, my lamp, and some paintings on the wall, which were done by my grandmother. So nice little stuff to remind me of where I come from. So here's the letter. Dear friends, since my story came out on National Geographic's Locked Up Abroad TV show, I've been absolutely overwhelmed with positive messages of support, love, and kindness. What's more, the podcast has taken a life of its own, with the addition of a phenomenal producer in Aaron Montgomery, as well as being able to line up some incredible recovering authors for the show. With all that's happening, I felt it was time to share what I believe to be a pretty solid business plan for revolutionizing recovery here in South Carolina. This was all really punctuated when I drove through the city one recent rainy Friday night and saw a very close friend who'd, air quotes here, disappeared 5 months ago. There he was, standing in the intersection with a cardboard sign that said, "I'm hungry and homeless." I ran toward him after parking my car, calling his name as I got closer. He turned, and in an instant, I saw recognition and deepest embarrassment. We locked in a massive hug there in front of hundreds of commuters around the 5 p.m. Friday night rush. In that moment, I realized my gesture was also informing all those people sitting in traffic. This man has a friend. He's someone's brother, son, father. The hour we spent after that was easily the best memory I've made this year. When I dropped him off at the bus station, I sat in my car and cried. Then I became resolute. My game plan to remedy tragedy. It's great to change the world, but I'm feeling the call to really focus my efforts in helping the neediest right here in Columbia, South Carolina. The vision behind the Recovery Authors has always been to open a treatment center at no cost for the neediest. What's great is that I've actually got a plan. Here are the details so far. Step 1, I'd like to open a few halfway houses here in Columbia. Obviously, we'll start with one. My target purchase date for house number 1 is August 1st, 2020. That's this year. In fact, that's just a few short months from today's post date, which was March 3rd. I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I do have the utmost faith in this materializing. Step 2, since halfway houses are profitable, I'll run the first one and live in it, by the way, and take funds as soon as we can afford it to buy a second and possibly a third halfway house. The reason I'll expand to the second and third is because of step 3. Step 3, my big vision is to purchase a downtown building like 1525 Bull Street. It's a gorgeous, currently unoccupied 3-story brick office building across from Church of the Apostles. I'd like to fully rehab it and turn it into a hybrid space. This would include office spaces, apartments, and co-working, which are shared desks, for people in long-term recovery. I'm absolutely enamored with the idea of having an entire building where recovering addicts can work and live surrounded by recovery. Back to my friend on the street. What I'd love to have done more than anything with my friend would be to take him somewhere to help him regain his strength, health, get a shower, and some self-respect. So behind these profitable ventures, my overarching goal, the greatest goal, is to open a treatment facility for recovery authors. So step 4, the treatment center will always support a significant number of scholarships and get the neediest people off the streets without cost. While we ate fried chicken that night, my friend told me where he used to live in another state. They have a place where he can walk into anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and get free treatment. Friends, I felt the same as that guy before I got a wealthy church member, who I very much appreciate, to help pay for my treatment 2 years ago when I was at my lowest. And he's probably not got the same resources as me, so that's why. But from all the God shots and inspiration and the awareness that I'm being called to leadership in this arena, comes the awareness that the realization that I really have a chance to raise the bar and with your help increase what recovery can look like on this planet. So I'm going small and local now, but the example that will flow from the success of this effort is truly global. And that leads me to step 5. Beyond these small endeavors, I hope to ignite a flurry of similar efforts across the world. It's a big vision, but to summarize, here's what I see. Number 1, a guy like my friend going from feeling there's no help to being given an unconditional, no strings leg up with a bed and treatment. 2, to see him flourish in a halfway house and perhaps even one day 3, joining me and my colleagues in recovery with us in that office building. Number 4, eventually igniting the belief that he too can start a business and perhaps become an entrepreneur. And 5, potentially live and work in an office building full of people who are aware that their rent actually helps get the next addict off the street. 7, dare I say it, maybe my friend could someday be the one to carry my model here to another city where he's able to save even more lives. There's so much to this virtuous circle. And if you want to fault me for being an unbridled or even unhinged optimist, that's your prerogative, and this letter's not for you. But I'm writing to the dreamers and the believers, the ones full of hope out there who are not overcome by cynicism and doubt, but rather full of the faith and hope that change is not only possible, but inevitable, and I might add necessary. Now today I'm actually doing this alone, but as addicts in recovery around the world learn, we do need to ask for help. And so that's my call to action, and that's how I want to end this mini episode here before the great author Amy Dresden joins us on the weekend episode. But I'd like to ask for your help on this mission, and you can do that by visiting recoveryauthors.org. Now, you don't have to do it financially, though if you're able to, we certainly appreciate it. But positive feedback, encouragement, joining me in the Facebook private group. It's called Recovery Authors Movement. You can come in there and support your fellow friends, or you can just do something completely independent of this podcast and our movement. Just, maybe next time you see a homeless guy on the street or at a street corner holding a sign, just try to remember that guy or that girl is somebody's mother, father, sister, brother, son, or daughter. We're all connected. And that's what we're all about. It's all about recovering and taking control of our lives and writing a new recovery, a new chapter, a new book. But the fact of the matter is, I can't do this by myself. I've tried and I failed miserably for many years. I need your help, and others out there need your help. So wherever you are in your journey, whether you're the mother of an addict or the son of a drunk, or the friend of a junkie, put your hand out and take some time out of your day to help your fellow man. I promise you, the rewards will be magnificent. Thank you. This is Jesse from Recovery Authors saying, have a wonderful day. I hope the inner weather of your heart is much better than the rainy day I'm enjoying actually right here in sunny South Carolina. So we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks so much for watching. And be sure to revisit us on recoveryauthors.org.